All right, so click the links to join the subscribe star, become a member here at YouTube. So don't just watch movies, but like grab a piece of paper and take a couple of notes on who the protagonists, who the antagonists are. Just see if you can start noticing some correlation here, some details. You start drawing lines between them. So the first few minutes of Black Adam have the evil English in some Middle Eastern country for some reason, because they're English, so they can always be the bad guy, whether it's in Star Wars or basically anything, as long as they have an English accent. Or a German accent's probably a little too on the nose these days, but the English accent is almost as good, which is funny because I think they fought the Germans some years ago. Anyway, so the evil English oppressors, which, obviously, which doesn't make sense because usually in the Middle East, it's going to be the Middle East oppressing the Middle East, or Africa on Africa, or China on the Middle East or Africa. But in Hollywood, non-European people are not capable of agency. It's just a fun movie. Just turn off your brain. No, I don't think. I think it's time for people to start turning on their brains and start noticing these hidden messages that are actually not so hidden. Like literally a one page piece of paper and a pencil, and you can start going, oh, protagonist, antagonist. What's the messaging? Who's portrayed? Like what messaging doesn't feel in accord with the movie? Oh, you mean a little kid giving a lecture on the English and imperialism and colonialism, but not mentioning any other country? Yeah, that kind of didn't seem to fit the movie so much. Yeah, that was a little. The reason critics didn't like it is because there wasn't enough propaganda in it. There was just a couple of little. I mean, there was the undercurrent of F the English, of course, and then the imperialistic little lecture. But it's like there wasn't enough to make the SJWs, these filthy Bolshevik parasites who are working at these Rotten Tomatoes, to make them happy. So in the Hollywood world, non-European people are not capable of agency. That soft bigotry of lowered expectations, yeah, they're 100% on board with that. Like there's no way they're escaping that label. That is absolutely the brutal reality. Got the left wing are the real istophobes the whole time. Yes, and yes, because they don't treat people equally. Where even people on the far right will at least make an attempt to treat people equally, which means hold them to the same standards. And the left legitimately doesn't believe that you can hold people to the same standards. We're all equal, but some people are more equal than others. Like, you guys read Animal Farm, but you're like taking notes as a guideline. Anyway, so they treat them as purse puppies. All they can be is victims to evil blonde people with English or German accents. That is pretty much how simple Hollywood is. And if you think I'm just tinfoil hatting it here, again, take notes on the last, I don't know, the last few things that have come out of Hollywood in the past few years. Literally just that kind of thing. Like, oh, so Star Wars kind of did the same thing. It's like, who are the protagonists, who are the antagonists in Andor Star Wars? It's like, kind of seems like there's the F the English type of theme going on here. Oh, and Black Adam, kind of, there's a little subcurrent of F the English. It's weird how many times those things, how many points of data you can find to map that correlation. It's like, I'm starting to see causation here. So you have a fictional Middle Eastern country with an English gang in charge. How does that work without people seeking redress of grievance against them? It's not like there's any lack of conflict in that area or really anywhere on Earth, but it's obviously Hollywood's only going to show you one narrow perspective. And the thing is, at first blush, you think, oh, this is kind of a fun, simple, dumb movie. It's like, yeah, it is mostly. That's why the critics didn't like it. But there are these undercurrents of propaganda. It's like, it's in every movie. You're not going to escape it. It's just how much they dial it back. Like, again, literally every new movie you see or streaming show, piece of paper, pencil, notice antagonist, protagonist, what's the message? And it's always going to be vaguely, F the English, usually specifically, or F European people. In general, it's like, oh, so I'm kind of noticing like fair-skinned, light-eyed people are the bad guys, a massive overrepresentation, as at least through the Hollywood lens. And non-people who don't look like that are usually portrayed as the good guys. It's like, yeah, that's a narrative they're pushing. Hollywood is propaganda. Like it's been propaganda for a long time, but now it's just finally masking off. Anyway, obviously it would have made more sense for the Middle East country next door to be their oppressor, because that's how the history of Africa and Middle East works. It's like, yeah, those people were just invading each other back and forth for the past 10,000 years. In fact, the more I think about it, the English running a gang in the Middle East is so stupid. It hurts. Like the more you think about Black Adam is a movie to watch once and not to think about, but it's also not a movie to pay for because the more you think about it, it starts falling apart just instantly. Like a lot of it, it doesn't take much to see how quickly it falls apart. It gives the movie a chance to show non-European people slaughtering English people. And that is a narrative that Hollywood very much loves, as opposed to showing Africans versus Middle Easterners or versus Chinese or versus Middle Eastern versus Middle Easterners, which would be the more likely scenario, which is what 99% of the conflict is. But you only see that 1%. So the story is this English gang is stealing their resources, except I don't think they mention which ones they're stealing. Maybe it's that rare MacGuffin mineral, and how a private NGO does that in a country with a super-powered United Nations, essentially the Justice Society, whatever. So, I mean, what's the point of having these super-powered Justice League type of characters if they allow an English gang to operate in this country and steal the MacGuffin mineral or whatever they're stealing? I mean, as soon as you start to think about this, it breaks down instantly. Like she even said that in the movie itself. She goes like, "Yeah, this guy, the Black Adam's the hero of our country. Like, where have you guys been for the past 30 years?" And it's like, yeah, the story should really answer that question. It's like, because, I mean, you can't answer a lot of these questions because I mean, you look at the United Nations, you're like, oh, they're just crooked and corrupt. Just like, like Hollywood is having a hard time because there's too many third rails to avoid touching on. So it's like everything Hollywood touches on is, oh, it's, hey, the evil English people again. Like, that's weird how, like, in every show you see, it doesn't matter if it's Birds of Prey, it's always going to be one group of people who are over. It doesn't matter around the world. It's like you could tell a story in China. And I think there was just a movie coming out of China. It's like they tell a story in China. And so what's the story? Oh, this Englishman is running around China and all the Chinese have to team up to catch the evil English. Like, yeah, that's the only way you could sell the movie to China. But I mean, you look at all of these movies and you realize how ridiculous all this stuff is if you're paying attention. Anyway, so it's not Israel or Palestine or India and Pakistan or Iran or Iraq or whatever or books not allowed or Al Quesadilla or Pipsis, those kind of groups in the Middle East. No, it's an English gang who's running the Middle East, which like all those examples I gave, that's 99.9% of conflict. But no, it's just the English gang. Yeah. So is it a government organization or an NGO? Because that doesn't it doesn't make sense. It's like, yep, movie's not going to explain that. It's just F the English, F the fair skinned, light eyed people. Okay, but I can't help but notice I see that in everything now. Not in the real world. I see that in Hollywood. Real world's actually something much different. So I guess diversity is not their strength after all. The storyline is that the people of Kandar, I think, are being oppressed by outsiders. But in the SJW open borders universe, shouldn't they consider the outsiders a vibrant source of cultural enrichment? The Kandahar people can't really protect their way of life if people can come in and change it, because that's the open borders model, but maybe I'm digressing a little bit. So The Rock can't act, but that doesn't matter in Hollywood anymore, not at all. Because as long as you've got the little kid giving a lecture about the English imperialism and stealing resources, just like China's doing in Africa. Oh, yeah, except Hollywood is not going to mention China in a negative light for obvious reasons. Everything in Hollywood is stupid, including this, but I guess it was less stupid than the standard globalist propaganda. They dialed it back quite a bit. It was there. You see it. Like, once you see this stuff, you don't unsee it. And it doesn't ruin Hollywood for you because it's not confirmation bias. It's like I've quoted the sources for this stuff where this is in the movie. It's actually in these movies and in all these other movies. You can go watch these streaming shows and you can see it too. It's like, oh, this is not confirmation bias. It's actually happening. So it ruins Hollywood for you because it's really there, not because you're seeing something that's not there. If it wasn't there, it's like you'd have to recreate an entirely new Hollywood, and that's just not going to happen. Probably. So people watched it. The critics didn't like it because it didn't have enough propaganda for them, and maybe the women wasn't a strong enough lead. That might have been some of it, but the movie had a lecture about imperialism, which was painfully stupid, and Englishmen, something English, because the evil oppressors, something evil, imperial, colonial, systematic, praxis, existentialism. It's like you just throw those words all have meaning, you troglodyte. Okay, okay, but it's like yes, they do, but you start with an issue and then analysis, but it never leads logically to the conclusion that you draw. It's like, yes, all those words do have definitions. Yes, yes, you can build a foundation, but you guys never do build a foundation. You just start with a conclusion and then follow it up with a conclusion. And then if anyone tries to offer a rebuttal or a counter argument or cross examine you or the evidence or bring up the issue or the argument, you deplatform and censor them. It's just like, well, the communist dialectic predicted this. Can we have a discussion about that? No, we don't talk to Yahtzees. Oh, so is everyone who disagrees with you a Yahtzee? You got it in one, buddy. And you can punch those people? Bingo. Including little old ladies? Well, they've got to go. They got to go, buddy. I think the history of Bolshevism. 100 million fertilizing fields in Russia, Ukraine, and China. It'll be different this time. It's like, is this all related to Hollywood movies? Yeah, it actually is. It actually is all related. That's why I'm making these videos. Anyway, other than that, it was a painfully stupid movie about nothing. It's set in the Middle East and they attack the English, but they don't address women's rights, which is especially relevant with that issues that's going on right now in that country in the Middle East, where they're talking about coverings on the countenance sort of things, or the brutal repression of other religious rights, or even atheism, which admittedly is cringe, or human rights in general in that region. Just never gets addressed. It's only F the English, or maybe just F fair skinned people in general. Or the left wing is all about diversity for Europeans, but they didn't. Why didn't Kandahar open her borders to allow African refugees in? It's all Middle Eastern people. It seems sort of weird. And actually, the more I think about Black Adam, the worse it gets. Like Dwayne Johnson is half African, I think, maybe, and half Pacific Islander, I think. So why is he playing the role of a Middle Eastern guy in the first place? Like, oh, it's the soft bigotry of lower expectations. We never apply the rules to non-European characters or actors. But I assume they race swap the other characters as well, the Hawk, the Cyclone, and whoever else, because that's just, par for the course. I obviously don't pay for Hollywood anymore. So if Solar and 123 or Odyssey or Bit Chute, you can find movies. You can find movies online if you're looking for them. So if you have a VPN, you can use a torrent and that kind of stuff. But I mean, you don't even need the torrent stuff. It's like it's online somewhere. So if people want to support this kind of Hollywood nonsense, it's like, hey, that's on them. You can watch this stuff without supporting it, if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys next episode.